What do you think about the state of awareness about dental health? One, in the major cities, and two, the bulk of India.
Toothbrushing technique is very important. As life expectancy and quality of life goes up, your teeth have to outlast you. As you grow older, dental issues become more and more prevalent.
Are you trying to just scare us just because?
Don't use powders because they are very abrasive.
Which one does Ambani use?
Don't give electric toothbrushes to young children. Okay. That would not be my advice.
Don't give anything electric to young
Yes,
ones.
yes.
Tell us about saliva.
Saliva has minerals, antibacterial capacity. You know, when you're using chewing gum, you're always cleaning your mouth when you're chewing gums.
Running is life-changing.
Yes.
But what about mouth breathing?
As you dry your mouth through evaporation because you're breathing hard from your mouth, your saliva starts evaporating and you're not able to produce enough saliva in your mouth. That leads to the same issue like mouth breathing and mouth dryness. Adding injury to insult is the use of...
What damages could we be doing if we are not looking after our oral microbiome?
Just like the gut microbiome, I do not recommend the use of mouthwashes regularly, especially alcohol-based mouthwashes. I think they should be pulled from the shelves. There is no use of alcohol-based mouthwashes.
What do you do for your oral health? Welcome back to the Find Your Ultra podcast. This conversation is with my friend Dr. Manav Kalra, who's a cosmetic dentist. He comes from the field of dentistry that's called prosthodontics, if I've pronounced that correctly. As I've learned a little bit about gut microbiome or the microbiome in general through my conversations with people and through the education from various sources, I realize the oral health is just as important as the gut health, and it's all connected. My starting point was I know nothing about oral health at all. So if you're somebody like me, you should definitely not miss this episode. And if you think you know a lot about oral health, you should again still get a reality check perhaps. This is a wide-ranging conversation in which we've spoken about the basics such as how to brush, how to floss, the mistakes we could be making every single day, things that are good for you and bad for you as far as oral health is concerned. We've tried to sort of deep dive into some of these subjects which are normally not spoken about. So oral health, in my opinion, is definitely a rabbit hole. There's still a lot to be learned. There's no conversation around it. Even about mental health, we've started to speak about it a lot. But who speaks about oral health and how much of us know about it? Dr. Manav Kalra is also a runner, so he's given tips especially for runners because we ingest a lot of sugars and sugar-based products, and that puts us at a greater risk. So without further ado, let's dive right in. This is Dr. Manav Kalra and me in the Find Your Ultra podcast. Indulge away. Before we get into the episode, I have a quick favor to ask from you. Find Your Ultra podcast is not just a podcast for me. It's a learning journey. It's my outlet. It's my life project. I'm committed to doing this. We may have missed a few episodes due to technology failure or just life happens. But we are totally committed to this. We want to make this big. We're in this for the long term and we need your support. Like, I've stopped asking for support and I've realized when I don't ask people to subscribe, people don't subscribe. Please, it's a free favor that I'm asking you to do. It does not cost you anything. It's a zero cost way of supporting the podcast. All you have to do is subscribe to the channel and share the video with whoever you think will find this useful. Please do that. I commit to you. In return, we'll make the podcast bigger and the guests will be bigger and the quality of the conversations, the production, every single thing will be better. Please do this favor. It goes a long way, a long way in helping us build this show. And the show will get bigger only if you support. There's no other way. Please support. Will you? Thank you. Dr. Manav Kalra, welcome to the Find Your Ultra podcast. What is a dentist doing on my podcast?
You tell me.
Yeah, so super interesting. My friend Shitish, who runs a podcast, Track and Dirt.
Yes.
He's done an episode with you.
Yeah.
And I was zapped. I was like, why is a runner? Like, you're a runner. So of course, I thought it'll be about running. But then the things that I learned on that podcast, I thought, dude, this is super interesting. And then that got me learning a little bit more about oral health overall. And then I found out that it's a rabbit hole. It's insane. So probably it's one of the most overlooked aspects of human health.
Yeah.
Mental की भी अब बात होनी चालू हो गई है. Oral की तो शुरू भी नहीं हुई है. It's insane. And the amount it impacts your body, which you'll tell us more. So I'm not even trying to going to make an attempt. Is insane. Like so many diseases can be avoided by looking after your oral health, and maybe we are ruining our oral health in so many ways inadvertently. Right. So let's learn about all of that today.
Absolutely.
Let's begin with the first question. What do you do for your oral health?
Well, I've been blessed with good teeth. So genetics and epigenetics are very important. After that, I mean, sometimes people have, unfortunate genetics, so they need more dentistry than others. But if your teeth are healthy and if your gums are healthy, then, if you brush twice a day, that's morning and evening, and you floss once a day, that's more than enough. Everything else like mouthwashes and everything else is supplementary, sometimes even more detrimental, that we'll discuss.
Yeah.
Brushing with a soft toothbrush, with a fluoride-based toothpaste, with or without xylitol, that's available. I wake up in the morning, first thing I do is brush my teeth. Okay. And then I'm going to have my breakfast, go along with my day. I come back home, I have dinner, and I wait for 30 minutes, at least 30 minutes after dinner to brush my teeth. We'll get into that, the remineralization zones and demineralization timing. So immediately after eating, you shouldn't be brushing your teeth. So you wait a little bit, you brush your teeth, and then, of course, which nobody does, that you should floss, and then you go to sleep. Right?
So, Remon, demon, all of that. Let's talk about that. But on this podcast, we talk about the person first. So let's hear a little bit about you. Where are you from? How did you get into this?
So I grew up in New Delhi. That's where we are right now. Many people don't know, but my father's also a dentist. And that's how I got into dentistry.
Okay.
And after dentistry, so there's a basic course in dentistry, which is the undergrad course, which is BDS. After that, I pursued my master's in something called prosthodontics.
Okay.
It's a mouthful, comes from the word prosthetics and dontics. So prosthetics means anything artificial, right? So crowns, bridges, implants, dentures, veneers, cosmetic dentistry, all these things comes under that. So I specialize in cosmetic dentistry and prosthodontics.
Okay.
And I was trained in Manipal University over a decade ago. And since then, I am in private practice. And I also, few people know about this, but I also do a lot of education and teaching. I don't teach in a college or in an academic setup, but we have our own institute where we teach cosmetic dentistry to other dentists as well.
Oh, wow.
So these are the two.
What's it called?
It's called Kalra Dental Education, and it's in Rajendra Nagar in Delhi.
Okay.
And my private practice is in Defense Colony.
Okay. So who comes there? Like, so somebody who's done their BDS, they will come.
BDS or MDS, anybody who's a trained and a practicing dentist. So dentistry.
Then if they've studied that, then why do they internship like?
No. So once you've done your basic program, you can choose to specialize, or you can choose to do certain procedures in your practice, which you're not trained for, or you want additional training for.
I see.
So people don't know that. This is something I would love to tell everybody, because when you go to your dentist, understand that dentistry has now become extremely vast and complicated. So just like how earlier, purane zamane mein, if I speak some Hindi, right? You would go to a doctor for everything, a physician.
Correct.
Today, when you have a problem,
what
you
go
to a
GP.
Today, if you have a tummy ache, you'll go to a gastroenterologist, or for other reasons, you go to a cardiologist or eye specialist or ENT and all those things, right?
Yeah.
You don't just go to a GP.
Yeah.
Similarly, in dentistry also, we now have subspecializations, right? So I'm a prosthodontist. I don't do root canals. You might have heard of root canal treatment, very common. I don't do them. Right? You might expect every dentist to do a root canal.
Correct.
That's not true anymore. We all have our specializations. We have periodontists who are gum specialists. We have endodontists who are root canal specialists. We have prosthodontists, as I previously mentioned, as what I am, who deal with artificial replacements and substitutes. And we have many others such like that. We have oral surgeons who deal with surgery, cancers, all kinds of surgical cosmetic procedures. So we have several branches. And you should now be looking for specialists, especially if you're living in a big city in India.
Okay, so
for
depending
your
on the condition, yeah,
yes, absolutely. And most good practices have set up where they have all kinds of specialists for all kinds of
Okay.
procedures.
So here's what's puzzling about this. I don't know anything about a dentist or dentistry at all. Like apart from the fact that I have a couple who are both dentists, and I meet them only for beers. That's all. And they haven't taught me jack shit because we never talk about, because it's so boring. Like who does that?
Especially
But-
over beer.
Yeah, exactly. But I've never had to sit on a dentist chair for anything. I brush once a day, not twice. My wife brushes twice a day. Everybody in my family brushes twice a day. They look after their oral health a hell of a lot more than I do. And they've all got fillings done, root canals done, and all of that stuff. How does this happen? Like, scene क्या है ये? मतलब क्यों किसी को हो रहा है और किसी को जो कम ध्यान दे रहा है उसको कुछ नहीं हो रहा है?
Okay, so how old are you?
40.
Okay,
Just turned 40 this last
excellent.
month.
So happy birthday, congratulations
you.
on your 40th birthday. But so here's the thing.
Hmm.
Of course, there are two things. One is that you could have good genetics in relation to your teeth and gums.
Mhm.
Number two, when you learned how to brush your teeth, and this is what we see every day in our practice. If you learned how to brush your teeth properly when you were younger, you probably now subconsciously use that same technique to brush and clean throughout your life.
Damn, there's a technique to brush.
There's a technique to brushing. You YouTube
Wow.
it, right?
Okay.
So I do this, right? You see patients coming in, and every time you clean their teeth, you clean their teeth 3 months ago, and now they come with all kinds of plaque and dirt, and you do some kind of dental work on them, and it doesn't last that long in their mouth because they're not able to keep that area clean.
Mm.
Right? So toothbrushing technique is very important.
Wow.
It's probably something that you already know subconsciously, and you're doing it well over a period of time.
Okay.
So your genetics are good, your toothbrushing technique is good, and you've been lucky, right?
And I've probably not been, I've not, because I've not had to look after this.
Yes.
I haven't taken those supplements and stuff which you end up damaging you and doing extra things that I've...
So before I speak about that,
Huh.
the next important thing that I want to discuss, to tell you on this point is that, see, you're 40 right now. Now, why is dentistry so relevant today as compared to, say, 50 years ago? It's because life expectancy and quality of life has gone up.
Correct.
And as life expectancy and quality of life goes up, your teeth have to outlast you if you want quality of life.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's like people say आजकल cancer बहुत ज़्यादा हो गया है, पहले बहुत कम था. While that's true to some extent because of environmental factors and all the chemicals in our food and all those things.
Yeah.
But what people really discount is the fact that there's more cancer today because people are living longer. So people are not dying of other diseases which which good healthcare and medicine has allowed for. And now the cancer is showing up. If your life expectancy is 65 or 70, the cancers that you get between 70 to 85 don't get to show up. Right? So similarly, with teeth, you're as you grow older, dental issues become more and more prevalent. Right?
Okay.
So you've lived the first...
Are you trying to just scare us just because...
What I'm trying to say is, I hope not, but you will need dental work as you get older. It's almost an inevitability.
So let's...
and it's better to be preventative than... So it's a paradox.
Absolutely.
To avoid dentistry, you need to come to a dentist.
Okay.
Every 6 months. Or at least once a year.
I was just joking, and I'm a great believer in preventative, anything preventative.
Absolutely.
And checkups and everything. I'm a great believer in all of that. So I think there's something that we were going to talk about anyway. I think it may be a good time. Tell us, what are some of the ways of looking after your oral health?
Yes.
Before we get into the weeds of this microbiome and all of that.
Absolutely.
Just tell us, what are some of the good practices that one can do? So somebody like me who's never visited a dentist.
Yes.
And let's say, divide people into 2-3 categories. One is somebody has zero to negligible budget. What are the zero cost ways of, looking after your oral health? What are those good practices? And the other one, if money is not a problem, then what are the right practices to do? What should you do to make sure that when you're 85 or 75, your teeth
good.
are still with you? Yeah, or gum diseases and all of that, those are away.
Okay, let's start with how you would like to take care of your teeth on a budget, right? I don't think that you need to go beyond one toothpaste and one toothbrush, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
cheaper than that, maybe you can go for a datun,
Yeah.
right? Or use what is that? Baking soda at home. Okay, like it's baking soda and a finger is still better than nothing, right?
Okay.
So if you want to go zero cost or almost
Yeah.
zero cost, it's that. Or a datun, you know what datun is?
Yeah, of course.
So that's also great. People use it in the villages. But I think they also have unprocessed food diet, so that's why datun is enough.
Okay.
Right.
Interesting.
Now, yeah. So I mean, that's unscientifically. I'm just trying to give my opinion here, so don't quote me on that.
All right.
But I think everybody listening to your podcast, I think can definitely do with a soft head toothbrush and a regular toothpaste. Now, in a toothpaste, I don't recommend
Why soft head first?
soft head because we don't want too much abrasion of the teeth and the gums.
Okay.
You can strip away the gums and you can abrade the teeth if you press with too much pressure.
Okay.
So again, coming back to toothbrushing technique, there's a technique to it and we want minimal pressure. So you want to just use a regular toothbrush, I mean a soft head toothbrush with a toothpaste, which is not these Ayurvedic formulations. And I'm a big fan of Ayurveda. I'm not saying that, but there's a misuse of that word these days.
Yeah.
Right. So those are not tested and I don't recommend them. So just your regular Colgate, Pepsodent, I'm not endorsing anything, but any regular toothpaste which is in your budget, which has fluoride, and most of them have fluoride,
Okay.
you're good with that.
And when you were saying baking soda and your finger, I was just thinking of Dant Manjan that used to come, Jabarlal Dant Manjan. Does that have fluoride?
So those are actually not to be used. So don't use powders because they are very abrasive.
Okay.
So that comes to that comes to toothpaste. So toothpaste also have abrasives in them. Okay. Now, why do they have abrasives? Because what you want to do is you want to disrupt the biofilm or what we call as plaque layer on top of the teeth. So when you have a little bit of abrasives, it can disrupt that and you scrub gently with a soft brush. You're simply disrupting the plaque without damaging the teeth and the gums. And that's why you want a soft head toothbrush. Okay. So now I would like you to add, if you want to go to the next level of healthcare, I would like you to add a floss. Why do we want a floss? Because toothbrushing only cleans the top, outer surface and inner surface of the teeth. It does not clean the surface of the teeth between the teeth.
Flossing or scaling kya hoti hai? Do you want to
scaling? So scaling is different.
Okay, what?
Flossing is when you are cleaning in between the teeth with a thread. Okay. So now I'm going to educate you on the importance of cleaning between the teeth. Okay. When you brush, you're only cleaning the top surfaces, back surfaces, and the biting surfaces. You're not cleaning in between the teeth. So teeth are like joined together, like they're touching each other.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
How do you clean the teeth surface in between the teeth?
Okay.
As a dentist, any dentist will tell you, significant amount of cavities start in between the teeth. Okay?
Yeah.
Because patients are not able to clean those areas. And we want to clean those areas.
Okay.
And how do we clean those areas? There are 3 methods. The first method is to use a thread floss.
Okay.
So you have a special thread that can go in between the teeth and it can disrupt that biofilm layer. And when you keep disrupting that biofilm layer, it can reduce the amount of cavities and gum disease.
What about it touching the gum then?
Let it touch. In fact, you're supposed to go between the teeth and the gums.
Okay.
And clean that area completely.
Okay.
Okay. And there is again a technique to it, freely available on YouTube.
So will you share some of those links and we'll put
For
it
your
in
show
the
notes. Of course. I have those on my phone at all times because I send them to my patients.
Okay.
Right? So I can share all of that with you. The second method, if you want to spend some money, you buy a device called water flosser. Okay, a water flosser is basically an electronic device which shoots jets of water under pressure, and that goes on your gum line and in between the teeth.
Okay.
And that is something which is phenomenal. I have given it to my patients and I've seen tremendous results from the people who actually use it.
What does it cost?
So it's very interesting. Earlier, I used to, recommend this to people, say 7, 8 years, 10 years ago. And the only thing that you had to get, that time we only had something called Water Pick, which is an American company. They had to import it. It used to 30,000, 40,000 rupees. And nobody would end up buying it except people who lived there. or who could afford it.
Mm.
Now you have lots of brands in India, and now it's 2,000-3,000 rupees, 4,000
Oh.
rupees.
And how long does it last?
It's a USB Type C. It charges with your charger,
interesting.
and it's it. I mean, I've been using mine for I think 4 or 5 years. There's been no problem. So I don't think.
Wonderful. So
that's a jet of water, and it cleans between the teeth.
and what's it called again? Water flosser.
It's called a water flosser.
Okay.
So
Fabulous.
there's a thread flosser
Sure.
and there's a water flosser.
Okay.
Now the water flosser is even more relevant for people of older
ages.
age groups.
I can imagine.
Okay, because what happens as age advances, gums tend to shrink a little bit. The bone tends to recede away from the teeth. Now, some amount is appropriate for the age group, so that's not a disease. But if the age of the person and the amount of bone recession is not matching, then we call that as a disease process, which is called periodontitis. Okay, it's a mouthful. You don't need to know that.
Sure.
But gum disease. Okay. Now, people who have this bone loss and people who are of an older age group, interdental cleaning, cleaning between the teeth, is even more relevant.
Okay.
And
so, it'll be why?
So I don't water floss every day.
Okay.
But as I get older, I know I'll need it more and more.
Okay.
People who have artificial, like people who have dental implants, people who have crowns, people who have bridges, people who have replacements of teeth, those people also need higher care of their teeth.
Sure.
So, and that also then requires this water flosser or at least a thread, if nothing else.
Okay. And what was the third technique?
And the third technique is called an interdental brush. Okay, so that is a special kind of brush. It's like a corn and a cob. So there's a stick and then there's filaments coming out.
Has things on the sides.
Yes, so it's a thread. It's a stick, and then it has these filaments coming out from the sides.
Okay,
and it comes in different sizes depending on how much space you have between the teeth.
Okay,
and that I think is for people who have significant spaces in their teeth. So that's for older individuals only.
I see.
Water flosser and floss is for all age groups. If you don't want to do water flosser, at least the thread flossing is very important.
Sure.
In practical sense, people I have out of 100 people that I teach how to floss, I would say 2 or 3 take it up.
Wow.
Because it requires a little bit of finger dexterity, but more than that, it requires a little bit of effort. Which is why I have now started shifting my patients to water flosser directly. And I'm like, aap floss karoge nahi, mujhe bhi pata hai, aapko bhi pata hai. So let's just get into this water flossing business. And water flosser cleans in such a way that it's very satisfying. You can sense the teeth getting clean.
Interesting.
So a lot of people get hooked onto it, which is great. And believe me, their requirement of dentists through their lives has dropped by 20-30% just by doing that.
Brilliant.
So those are the methods of cleaning your teeth in between your teeth.
Okay. So
now, if you want to spend more money, you can upgrade your toothpaste. Okay. There is we'll talk about this more in the remineralization and
which one does Ambani use?
So, so there's this toothpaste which has, and it's a mouthful, so I'm just going to read it out.
Sure.
Okay. So the short form is CPPACP. Okay. So this is phosphopeptide amorphous calcium phosphate.
Damn.
Okay. Sorry. Casein phosphopeptide amorphous calcium phosphate.
I'll surely remember that.
Right?
Yeah.
So all you got to remember is GC Mousse. Okay. The company is called GC. The product is called Mousse. So GC Mousse.
Yeah. Okay.
Now this is, I think, 1,000 rupees for 50 ml or 100 ml of toothpaste. I don't know. It's a very small tube. Now this tends to cause remineralization of initial cavities. So there's something called white spot lesions, which is basically just the starting of cavities. So we'll get it.
Talk about no. I think it's a good time. Tell us that's also a mouthful, right? Remen and demon. Yeah,
like a demon.
Yeah, exactly. That's how human also
says. Yes.
That's a good way to remember it. So tell us remen and demon. What are they? Why are they important?
Yes.
And then we'll get into something that does
the super expensive toothpaste.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll start this conversation, this explanation by explaining to you how a cavity forms. Okay, and remen and demon is basically related to that only. Okay.
Sure.
A cavity forms so surprisingly, cavities don't form because of the food. It happens because of the bacteria eating the food, mainly the
Food or sugar?
Sugar.
Yeah.
Mainly the sugar.
Yeah.
So it eats the sugar, this particular bacteria called S mutans, Streptococcus mutans, we'll call it S mutants for short.
Right.
They eat the sugar, that's their food, and they excrete out acid. This acid then dissolves the enamel of the teeth. So enamel and dentine are the mineralized structures of your teeth, and they will dissolve it and cause a little hole, which we call as a cavity. Now, when there is a little bit of a hole, the bacteria gets a shelter from the cleaning mechanism of the saliva.
Wow.
And then more bacteria can sit in that cavity. And then the process becomes a vicious cycle, and it keeps eating sugars, and the cavity becomes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And where you stop that cavity when you go to a dentist determines what the treatment will be.
Okay. And
could be a simple filling.
Okay.
Rather, it could be a remineralization process. So when it's very small, when the cavity is very, very small,
this is beginning to form.
The technical term is called white spot lesion. It looks white, chalky white.
And it's a lesion.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And lesion just means anything abnormal in your body. That's not the technical term, but just to simplify. So the white spot lesion, if it is at the initial stages, you can remineralize that by using a product like GC Mousse, okay, or something similar, which we'll discuss.
But that's something that only dentists use, or
no.
people at home.
Regular people can use it at home, but dentists can prescribe it for you.
All right.
Right.
It's a prescription-based thing.
No, I think you can get it over the counter.
Okay.
But people don't really know about it. So dentists would typically tend to prescribe it.
Sure.
Right. So at that stage, you don't need any dental intervention. And that is the beauty of the body's ability to repair itself. But beyond that stage, beyond that white spot lesion, nothing will help.
Okay.
Then you have to go to a dentist who's going to scoop out that cavity, or drill out that cavity, and fill it with an artificial substitute. Okay. And the artificial substitute is
mercury?
No. So nowadays we don't use silver amalgam, which is mercury. We now use something called composite, which is a resin-based material. And it is obviously neither silver amalgam nor composite. None of these materials are going to be as strong or as good as your natural, healthy enamel or dentine. These are substitutes, but we have to replace that damaged tooth structure with an artificial material. Otherwise, this process is progressive, and the teeth and the dentine at that stage do not have the ability to repair themselves. And at a later stage, it can go into the nerve of the tooth, which will cause pain. And then you require a root canal to save that tooth, or the tooth has to be removed.
Right.
So that is that. So anyway, coming back to the Remon and demon and the cavity forming. So now you know that in an acidic environment, teeth tend to dissolve.
So acidic environment kaise hai? Bacteria is feeding on sugar.
Yes.
And then that is releasing an acid.
Yes.
And that's causing the cavity.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So
in an acidic environment, what happens?
Okay. So now when you eat something or when you drink something which has carbohydrates, which can be broken down into sugars, and then the sugars are sitting on your teeth. Yeah. That is so after almost every meal, the mouth goes into a demineralization cycle. It's totally normal to be in a demineralization cycle. It is the amount of time the mouth spends in the demineralization cycle that can be a problem. Yeah. Right? It's the total time of demineralization versus remineralization is when the problem lies.
Right.
So
I also heard, sorry to interrupt there, that your mouth is at all times
either in a demon or a remineralization stage.
Demon, right?
That's right.
Okay.
So which is why after eating food, your mouth is in a demineralization stage. Now, which means it is in an acidic stage. Okay. Now
that is the bacteria are feeding and they're releasing acid.
Yes.
Okay.
Now what happens is the saliva has a buffering capacity. So it is trying to make the body back into basic. So from acidic, it's trying to go back to basic. And that is the buffering capacity of the saliva. Now, if your saliva is healthy and it has a high buffering capacity, you will spend less time in the demineralization zone, which means that you will have less incidence of cavities and bone disease and gum disease.
Wow. So there's a new hero in the story.
Yes.
Saliva.
Saliva. That's
Okay.
right. So the saliva is what is causing the remineralization.
Okay.
Okay. So the acidic environment has to be reduced and the basic environment has to be increased.
Okay.
And this is how we want to, we want our healthy mouth to be.
So tell us about saliva.
Right. So let's say, your saliva has a buffering capacity. So it's trying to come, and so saliva is...
What's a healthy saliva? Because you mentioned that, right?
A healthy body has a healthy saliva. It has a saliva has minerals, right, which can remineralize the teeth. Saliva has antibacterial capacity, and saliva has what we call as it can flush out the bacteria also, right? There's flushing also. That's why we say when you chew, like we like to say xylitol based chewing gums. You know, when you're using chewing gums, it's activating the saliva. You're always cleaning your mouth when you're chewing gums, right? And this is so coming to another point, which is why I also said earlier in my podcast that you should not be brushing your teeth immediately after eating because you're in a demin stage. And when you're in a demineralization stage, your enamel, just
is more susceptible.
Is softer, we say. Like it's just a layman of saying. So enamel is softer at that time. So when you brush, you're able to remove more minerals and brush them away. Okay. So wait for the saliva to buffer the acid so that you're back in a basic stage and then brush your teeth.
Okay. That's after every meal.
You don't have to brush after every meal. I mean, if you want, you can. But you have to, when you're brushing, don't brush immediately after a meal.
But you said unless you can. So ideally, if somebody
after
can brush
every meal,
3 times.
Yeah, 3 times. But then wait again half an hour, no?
Half an hour.
Yes.
No, but will it be good or will it be detrimental?
That's a good question. The recommendation is twice a day.
Yeah.
I don't know if thrice a day will make it worse, but I think you should stick to twice a day and floss. Yeah. It's more than enough.
Yeah, find something else to do.
Okay. That's right.
Wonderful, sir.
Yes.
So, saliva, you were telling us a healthy body has healthy saliva.
Yes.
Saliva, what are the factors that saliva is affected by? Is it the food that we ingest or is it what else?
So saliva, again, so it's all, the human body is extremely well connected and interdependent on all these things, right? So now we'll come to the microbiome also, right?
Yeah.
So the microbiome is not separate from the saliva, right?
Correct.
So let's say that, so let me tell you a little bit more about Remon and Demon and how saliva works with that.
Yeah.
My recommendation would be to not continuously eat throughout the day, because that means after every snack meal, your mouth is in a demineralization stage. Your saliva has to work harder to remineralize. Coffee, let me give you an example of coffee. Coffee is acidic. So one is that the food that you're eating has sugars and that is creating the acidity through bacteria.
Sure.
The other factor is there are certain foods themselves which are acidic.
Okay.
Like coffee.
And like alcohol.
Right, like alcohol, like coffee. So they are in self causing a reduced pH in the mouth. So if you're going to have coffee, like how I am having right now, I would advise you not to sip on coffee for 3-4 hours.
Oof.
Have it for half an hour, 1 hour, and be done with it. So that your body has some buffering time, you know. So this is something that favors your intermittent fasting also. Like, so give your body time for many hours in a day when you're not eating or consuming anything. Okay. So the saliva has a chance to remineralize your teeth. Otherwise, all the time that your saliva is battling acids.
Interesting. I mean, the world is divided again on intermittent fasting and all those things. There are people who worship it and there are people who demonize it.
Yeah.
And so all those who actually say that you should be eating at regular intervals, you know, those meal plans that give you every 2 hours, 3 hours.
I think that's an old science now, because the bodybuilders and all used to know, they say you have to eat every 2-3 hours, feed your muscles, all of that. I think now it's...
No. There's still a huge amount of people who advocate this.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not on any campsite.
Right.
Because had I figured out nutrition, I would be somewhere else in my life. Nutrition is the most complicated and confusing, and the more even information that has become available on the internet, the more confusing it has become.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
Yes.
Which is why I did a nutrition course. I studied nutrition recently.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Absolutely.
So anyway, coming back to the point, those who advise eating multiple times a day and call it a balanced diet or whatever it's called, that has an effect on oral health as well, is what you're saying. Because अगर आप frequently खा रहे हो तो आपको आपके digestive system को rest नहीं मिल रहा है.
Yes.
And you're saying same thing is with saliva.
Yes.
Saliva is not getting a chance to remineralize your, however it's said,
Let me tell you
remin
something.
your teeth.
Yes. Let me state something obvious.
Mm.
Your mouth is part of your digestive system.
Mm,
So if you're saying digestive system needs a rest,
Correct.
your mouth needs a rest.
Absolutely. Well put. Oral microbiome.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. So gut microbiome is all over the place.
Yes.
And most people think that gut microbiome is the most important part of it. It is actually the largest colonization of bacteria in our body.
Absolutely.
Oral microbiome, in comparison to that, is much smaller, right? But probably equally important.
Absolutely.
Right? And that has an impact on various aspects of your health. And people are divided on a lot of topics to do with fluoride, to, various other things. Tell us about the oral microbiome. What does it do? And what damages could we be doing if we are not looking after our oral microbiome?
So just like the gut microbiome, I mean, interestingly, it's a philosophical question also about the microbiome, right? Because there are more bacterial cells that make us up than human cells, right?
Right.
In terms of number, not in terms of volume. So if I say, who is Vipin? Is it the cells? Or is it the cells plus the bacteria? So, you can't live without them. And the second you're born, you're filled with them, right? And they produce all kinds of important functions in the gut, including neurotransmitters and all kinds of, mood, mental health, everything. Everything's connected, right? So the gut microbiome is continuous with the oral microbiome, right? Because it's part of the digestive tract. Sure. Right? Starting of the digestive tract, middle and the end.
So
right?
यही लोग हैं ये जो यहाँ से
यही लोग हैं, and there's different sections. There's a palate, there's lips, there's mouth. So there's different areas where different colonies of bacteria live. Some good, some bad. Now, this is the reason why you should not. So earlier, before we understood about microbiomes, we used to be cleanliness freaks, right? We would want everything to be clean, more disinfectant, the better. Now we know that's a problem. So broad spectrum antibiotics are a big problem for microflora anywhere in the body.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Similarly, I do not recommend, and most dentists now do not recommend the use of mouthwashes regularly, right? We don't, and especially alcohol-based mouthwashes. I think they should be pulled from the shelves. There is no use of alcohol-based mouthwashes anywhere for any condition.
Why is that?
Because alcohol is terrible for the oral microbiome, and it also leads to a reduced blood flow in the tissues of your gums and the mucosa that it comes in contact with. Okay, mucosa. Let's talk about that, right? Mucosa is basically the skin of the teeth, of the gums and your cheek. Okay. So the inner layer, the inside of your cheek, rather the inside of your cheek is mucosa. It's not skin. Okay. It's a type of skin, but it's different. Now, the mucosa cannot survive without its microbiome. Okay. Similarly, the gut cannot survive. The gut mucosa. What is actually the gut? The gut is basically a lining. Lining is what? It's mucosa. So that lining cannot exist without its microbiome. So we don't want
when that gets damaged, you get leaky gut and various other things.
All of those things.
Bacteria get into and that's how the immune system is affected and inflammation begins.
Absolutely.
And it just spirals out of there.
Absolutely. So similarly, when your oral microflora is out of whack, you're going to develop gum disease and other issues, right? And this Remon demon is also part of that microflora, right? Okay. The buffering capacity, all of these things are all interrelated. Right? So one of them is alcohol. Whether you're drinking alcohol or whether you're using it in a mouthwash. They both are bad for you. I would recommend that.
Or even alcohol-based syrups for cough syrups.
But those are so rare. You're only using it once in a while. So I don't know if that's going to have that much of an impact.
No, but I guess Benadryl or something at one point was...
Benadryl is codeine. I'm not sure if it has alcohol in it.
Okay, so I may be getting the name wrong, but one of the cough syrups was at one point it used to give you such a high that the company was considering rebranding it, or maybe
but that high is not from alcohol. That high is from codeine.
Oh, is it?
Yes, that's a
Oh.
drug.
Okay.
Yeah, so I
Alright.
think the high comes from that.
It's an opioid.
Yes, I think so. I'm not sure, but it's a pretty hardcore thing.
Okay.
I can look that up for you.
Codeine,
So
OxyContin. Yeah. Okay. I don't know.
yeah,
Okay.
so it's
Yeah.
it's in there. It's in there. So yeah, and to support your gut microbiome or your
Oral
your oral microbiome, you need to have a healthy diet, prebiotics, probiotics, what do you call fermented foods. And specifically for your oral microbiome, if you're really you want to fix that, people have now started talking about just simple warm salt water gargles, not to drink, but to rinse with them after every meal. So if you're not brushing after every meal, like we said, we don't need to. You can rinse your mouth with warm salt water gargles,
Okay.
and that can really help. Because salt is also a type of a natural antiseptic, right? So it works as an antiseptic, but it doesn't kill off the good bacteria. Right, so we don't want to use even chlorhexidine-based mouthwashes if you are not in a disease state.
Okay.
Right, if you have gum infection, if you've had a surgery in the mouth, if you've had some kind of implant surgery, you have stitches in your mouth, some other work that we've done for you, we can recommend chlorhexidine mouthwashes for you for a limited period of time.
Okay.
Unfortunately, what is happening is these are over-the-counter products, and people use this as a mouth freshener, or they just think that they're cleaning their mouth further.
Oh yeah.
They are killing the good bacteria along with the bad bacteria, and it's net causing a negative effect on their oral hygiene as well as their oral microbiome. So I would not recommend, overdoing it with mouthwashes, or alcohol-based mouthwashes, or alcohol for that matter.
Yeah.
What
are some of the other things that could be damaging the oral microbiome?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay.
The biggest effect is the unfortunate condition that some people have of mouth breathing. Mouth breathing is nasty. It's pure nasty because it dries up the saliva, it dries up the mouth, which changes the contents of the microbiome. And it causes a massive reduction in the buffering capacity of the saliva. It causes gum disease and it causes cavities. Okay. And anything that causes dryness of the mouth, right? So
that's all of those diuretics as well.
Well, diuretics, if it's causing dehydration, but diuretics should not cause dehydration because you should compensate for it by having electrolytes and water in general. So, but yes, then there are certain drugs like stimulants, so these stimulant drugs tend to reduce the amount of saliva in the mouth.
Name some. Modafinil does it?
Your drugs like methamphetamine, anything, right? So these drugs are going to cause a decrease in saliva, dryness of the mouth, and then again change in microflora. And mouth breathing does the same thing, right? And now, why does one mouth breathe? It could be related to the obstruction of the nose. It could be related to anatomical issues. That's why there's a branch of dentistry called orthodontics, right? Which move teeth and improve the structure of the face and the jaw. So if people have obstruction because of a narrow passage, or if they have some other issues with the nose, or they have chronic sinusitis, many other issues that cause mouth breathing.
So sinusitis is also a part of, it comes under the scope of a dentist?
Not completely, but yes, the sinus has many roles to play in dentistry also. But
usually who do you go see?
The ENT.
ENT, okay.
Right? But if you have sinusitis, it can lead to mouth breathing.
Okay.
And then mouth breathing can cause a huge issue in terms of gum health and teeth health.
It's phenomenal how less often we think about how everything is so connected.
And this can also lead us to a conversation about runners, which we'll discuss later.
Let's do that now.
So mouth breathing is terrible, as I just told you.
Yeah.
What do we do when we run or when we run ultras? Right?
Before that, tell me about yourself. We didn't even talk about it. How did you get into running?
I got into running
just because you live close to Nakalgutta.
Actually, that's how it happened.
Really?
One day I was just jogging, right? And I never used to jog. I just started. So let me try it. Started jogging, and I was doing a 1 kilometer or 2 kilometer, and I met Nakul. So I know Nakul through the basketball court here and basically the defense colony. We're defense colony kids. We grew up
What
here.
was he doing on a basketball court?
Nakul used to play a lot of basketball. Nakul
Damn,
was a
he's played
very
everything.
serious. He was a very serious basketball player, and he was into weightlifting and lots of resistance training back in the day. And he is now also. So he saw me and he was doing his all-in running program and all of that. I didn't know anything about his running program,
Sure.
but I knew him through childhood. He saw me running. He's like, "Kya kar raha hai?" And I was running in my basketball shorts and I had my shoes wrong. And he's like, "Come meet me. If you're interested, come call me up later on in the day."
Sure.
I did, and rest is history.
Okay.
This was 7 years ago, and I mean, a huge shout out to Nakul, right?
Yeah.
Nakul Bhutta from All In Running. He has single-handedly had one of the most significant impacts in my life. Not just running, just the way, you also know him personally and professionally.
Yeah.
Just for the love of outdoors, he's made me into an outdoors person. He's got me into trail running.
Yeah.
His Capital Trail is an amazing project. And of course, I mean, the day after tomorrow, I'm going to Ladakh to climb Kangyatse 2.
Wow.
And
KY2 you're doing?
I'm doing KY2.
Awesome. Best
So-
wishes, sir. That's
so-
that's no cakewalk.
There's no cakewalk, 6,200 plus meters. I'm
Mm.
very, very excited.
Amazing.
But all of that is coming through, directly or indirectly through my Nakul's influence in my life. And
Yeah. So he's to blame for a lot of people running,
Yes.
pounding the pavements of Delhi.
absolutely. And through him,
And out, not just pavements, but jungles.
jungles. I think more so jungles, because everybody knows the roads. But how many people know that there are jungles all over Delhi? Like 5 kilometers from in any direction from here, you'll find
Yeah.
jungles, right?
Yeah. There
And,
are so many things to admire about him, about
Yeah.
the sustainability angle.
Absolutely.
And the way his belief in structured training and all of that is.
And I have now influenced at least 4 or 5 people to start running. So it's been an infectious thing,
Absolutely.
and so
Running is life changing.
it's very nice.
Yeah. Running is life changing.
Yes,
But what about mouth breathing?
yes.
A lot of runners mouth breathe. In fact, would you not say bulk of the runners mouth breathe?
If you are going to do an activity in zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, you are going to mouth breathe here. I mean, people say, no, you need to nose breathe and all. I said, I haven't seen the evidence to support that. So at the end of the day, everybody's mouth breathing. Let's assume everybody who's...
Depending on how what kind of fitness you have. So, for example, Binesa. So these could be outliers. Binay, my friend. So he says, यार 4 की पेस पे तो मुंह खुल जाता है. So unless
4,
हाँ.
मतलब 5 पे नहीं खुलता.
5 पे नहीं खुलता है,
Wow.
4:30 पे नहीं खुलता है,
Wow.
और 15 में नहीं खुलता है. So he's like that. So nose breathing all the time. Biplab has been nose breathing all the time, except for when he's doing intervals, like really fast intervals. Apart from
That's
that,
amazing. So you're saying...
even ultras 100K is nose breathing.
Oh, that's very interesting, because I don't think that's possible for me, or the people that have been running.
Anything's possible
so, yeah.
that anybody has done.
That's
So,
amazing. That means your friend can run a 20-minute 5K without opening his mouth.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I think his PB is probably 18 minutes or something. So yeah.
So if his PB is 18 minutes, I'm quite doubtful that he can nose
Let's
breathe
find
at 20.
out. So he's mentioned 4 ka pace. That's what I remember
that's
from an
interesting.
event. We'll double check.
Yeah.
I could be slightly
That's
wrong
very
about
interesting,
this.
and I'd love to explore that more.
But I'm right about
Yeah, let's
Biplab doing 100K and winning a podium, nose breathing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But then in 100K, you go slower. You're not like...
But even then, I mean, the heart rate goes up. There's a heart rate
For
creep,
sure.
right? The more
Correct.
distance you do, the more your
The
heart
cardiac
rate
drift is there.
Yeah,
Yes.
creep, drift, whatever. Yeah.
Yes. Coming back.
Yeah.
Huh.
So when we run, our we tend to mouth breathe, and we tend to get dehydrated. Right? There's more water that's being used for sweat and all the other things. So as you dehydrate and as you dry your mouth through evaporation, because you're breathing hard from your mouth, your saliva starts evaporating and you're not able to produce enough saliva in your mouth. Right? That leads to the same issue like mouth breathing and mouth dryness. Mouth dryness is going to lead to a reduced buffering capacity of your saliva, which means that your saliva is not going to actively try to create in basic environment, and your mouth can start remaining in a more
Acidic.
demineralized acidic environment.
Right.
Adding injury to insult is the use of gels, which are pure sugar, or your mixes and all these sugary drinks and everything. So you have sugary drinks, which are ultra processed sugar.
Yeah.
Right, and in the purest form, because that's what you need for running and immediate energy. Instant energy. So you have the food, which is amazing for S mutants. You have an environment which they love because the saliva is not able to wash them off, kill them, buffer them off, and there's no swishing action.
Yeah.
So it is a perfect environment for cavities to form. Right?
Damn.
Now, that's not an issue if you're running 60 minutes or 1 hour, 1.5 hours, 2 hours. Now, when you start getting into the longer forms, or if you're running every day, 1 hour, 1.5, 2 hours, every day, and you pack up 7, 8 hours.
Now it's getting personal.
Now it's a problem. Right? Because again, we spoke about this. It's not that demineralization zones are bad in and of themselves.
Yeah.
But it's the time duration and the intensity. The intensity is very high when you're running, right?
Correct.
It's very dry.
And your mouth breathing.
You're having sugary drinks. And you're doing it for a sustained period of time. This is where the problem lies.
Okay. So longer distances in particular.
Longer distances.
And runners are generally longer distance runners. Like even if you're a 10K runner, you would be doing long runs. 16 kilometer 20 up karte.
Yes.
Do that.
Yes.
And ultra runners in particular
are
ingesting most. Okay.
So let me tell you the solution now.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the problem. So we've stated the problem. The problem is a heavy amount of dryness in the mouth due to mouth breathing and dehydration.
Sure.
And added to that, sugary drinks, which is going to cause more acidic environment, more demineralization, and lesser buffering capacity of the saliva.
Sure.
How do you solve for this? Number one, for your shorter runs, completely avoid sugars and sugary drinks. I think there's an over-reliance on gels. If you're doing a 10K and you're not racing, I don't think you need a gel. Unless you're really doing.
If you're not racing, yes.
If you're racing, do it. So do it on the race days. Don't do it on your training days as much as possible.
So I know ultra runners also who don't have gels at all. So you're saying if you can avoid, if you're not competitive, and if you can avoid without suffering on performance, avoid them.
Yeah, avoid them. Have a banana or a mango before you run. And go for a run. I mean, you don't have to have gels and ultra processed things. See, those are supplements needed for endurance athletes while they're really doing some long-term work. So first of all, ये छोटा-मोटा runs के लिए, practice runs के लिए ज़्यादा कुछ use करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. Over-reliance on these things is also not good. Number one. So that's step number one. Reduce the amount of sugars.
But the problem with that is when you're training for an ultra, your runs will be longer. And you can't have gels just on the race day. You will have to have them in training as well.
Correct. If you're training for ultra, so I'm not
talking... Not even ultra, like even for marathon, like 42 as well.
Correct. So for those people who are in training cycles, use them. I'm saying if you're not in a training cycle or if you're going for easy runs, try to avoid them in those.
Okay.
So what you're saying, when you need them, and of course, you can't just suddenly take gel on the day you have to train with gels.
Yeah.
You have to train when you want to do it. You have to see when you're dipping and all those things. So I'm completely for training with gels when needed.
When needed.
Now, when they are needed, how to avoid, how to protect your oral microfilm, your teeth and your gums and your oral cavity. Very simple. Do not put the sugary energy drink in your main hydration bladder. Okay. Your main hydration bladder should always be only and only water. Or if you want, you can put some kala namak in it, or just for your salts. You can put salts in it. Don't put any sugar in your main hydration bladder. Then you have your small bottles. You have the small bottles. Put extra concentration of that energy drink in that.
Okay.
So you have the sugary powder. Okay. You put it in those small, what are they called? The soft, anyway, this is just small, your smaller carry ones that you put in the front, right?
Yeah. In a hydration bag.
Yeah. So you take out, so whenever you need to drink, you take this out, take a big sip. So it's very sugary, so it's high concentration.
Okay.
Take a big sip, drink it. Okay. Then immediately after that, take out your hydration bladder nozzle,
sip water,
swish, drink.
Wow. So that it's in.
It's in. So that the contact time of sugar in your mouth is significantly reduced. Number one. Number two, the washing aspect of water takes away all of that sugar and you just drink that. So do not, so what's the alternative? What do the people do? They put in the main bladder and they keep sipping it.
Yeah.
So meetha, everything is meetha.
Yeah.
There is no water.
Right.
So that is wrong. That's such a simple thing. So imagine you're getting the same amount of sugar, you're getting the same amount of calories, whatever you want, you're getting.
Yeah.
Because you're putting the same concentration in these front pockets.
Sure.
The main bladder, just water. That's the easiest way I would recommend, right? And the alternate and the other way to do it is use gels. Gels. So when you're using gels, make sure you have water.
Yeah.
ये नहीं कि gel भी है और उसमें भी you have sugar drinks.
Right.
So you have gel also and sugar drink. I think that's wrong. So you can have gels and then at least one main bladder should be just water.
Amazing.
That's the way.
Would you also say, as a general guideline, exposure to sugar, like having sugar in your mouth or anything sugary in your mouth, it should be, the duration should be as short as possible.
Exactly.
तो अगर आप मिठाइयाँ भी खा रहे हो,
हाँ.
like if you're like there's festive
Yes.
season coming up,
Yes.
people have all the mithai dabbas lying around and stuff, and
Yes.
you keep taking a little bite every now and then. So reduce those occasions and durations as well.
Absolutely. That you're 100% correct on that, and that's an advice that we very often give our patients and people in general. जो भी खाना है एक टाइम पे खाओ. Don't keep eating throughout the day. So I mentioned something like that in earlier in this podcast also, where I said don't keep snacking throughout the day.
Sure.
And especially if you're having something unhealthy and sticky and everything, have it once. Don't keep having it. It has a huge impact on the buffering and the acidic and the Reman ratio in your mouth.
What was the name of the bacteria again?
Streptococcus mutans.
So S mutants.
S mutants.
So S mutant, I've heard also, it's not just sugar directly. It also feeds on complex carbs as well.
Yes.
So you can't avoid S mutants at all. It will be there. It's just that there'll be more of them if there's direct sugar or refined sugar or processed sugar.
Yes, I think if you want to just be practical and not get too much into the science, you cannot avoid S mutants by your diet. If you have more fibrous food and less processed food, then yes, there are less chances of cavities in your mouth, because the fiber itself is, you have to chew it, and that chewing mechanism leads to more saliva production, and the fiber itself can dislodge sticky food substances from your mouth. So obviously things which are more sticky and more sugary are going to cause more cavities because they're stuck to your teeth. So apart from all the things that I told you for runners, ultra runners who are running, I think beyond 10 to 12 hours should brush their teeth. So aid stations, I think, in these events should have dental kits that are given off to runners, or their their goodies pouch that their team members bring to these aid stations should have a toothbrush and a toothpaste, and they should be brushing, because they are particularly susceptible after 8-10 hours of running. So agar these ultra runners are running for 24 hours, even more, they need to be brushing their teeth.
Done that, sir. But from sustainability point of view, I guess, like we bring our own hydration bottles, we should probably not at aid stations, but at drop bag points, we should leave our toothbrush and toothpaste probably.
Absolutely. And nowadays you have toothpaste tablets also, which don't.
Really?
Yeah, it's very, very sustainable. So you just put that in your mouth, it starts foaming, and you can brush. So no packaging.
Wonderful.
Something that ultra runners community can
explore for sure. But Meenal Kotak, during her 6-day race, she made a national record just now. She did not brush during the race at all. Yeah. So Meenal, here's something that you should start doing.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's talk about fluoride. So जैसे antibiotics में हुआ था when it was invented, I think all the problems started with that. It kills bacteria and all of that. So the world is right now divided on fluoride. Some people say that it is so Huberman said there's a lawsuit going on that we need fluoride in water, and there's a lawsuit going on in another city in the US that's talking about that it should be stopped and removed from all toothpaste that are out there. Now, as a consumer, we have barely any options. There's Fang, that's one, and I don't know the names of any other brands that make these toothpaste without fluoride.
Yes.
Should we worry about it? If what does it do basically? Just tell us.
Okay. I think it is very, 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 very clear that fluoride is an important tool to prevent cavities for the larger population, right? There's more than enough evidence. But just like anything else, the dosage makes the poison, right? So we have 1 part per million, which is considered the optimal water concentration for fluoride, which can prevent cavities for children and for adults, right? So so fluoride can be divided into topical fluoride, which we apply on the teeth, and fluoride that we ingest. So ingestion is typically done through the water supply itself. Okay.
इंडिया में भी डालते हैं?
इंडिया में नहीं डालते, but there
कहाँ
are
से डालेगा? पानी इतना गंदा आता है तो.
but there are pockets in India where the water supply itself is fluoride. It means it's naturally fluoridated.
Really? How?
Yes, because
like what?
I mean, it is there in the water.
Oh,
it's just
like
there.
what? Where,
So like and there the fluoride concentration is actually higher than what we want it to be.
Okay.
And that's what causes problems called fluorosis, where you see people with bands of brownish bands on their teeth, spotty lesions on their teeth. And that's called fluorosis. And that's a cosmetic issue. It's a functional issue of the teeth. Like there are places in Haryana, Faridabad, Gujarat. There are many other belts where there is excess fluoride in the water, and that's not good.
Okay.
But fluoride in the right concentration is great, right? So water fluoridation, we've already discussed. Now let's come to what the consumer can do, right? So the consumer or the general public can opt for fluoride-containing toothpastes.
Containing or
yes,
not containing?
I recommend containing.
Okay.
Because that will prevent cavity formation and that will reduce the incidence of decay in the in your mouth.
So 99% of the toothpaste do have fluoride.
They do have, for good reason, right? Why would they add it if it was, I mean, there is no other benefit for it except that it prevents cavities. So all dentists, or by and large, 99.9% of dentists that you will come across and speak to, are going to favor the use of fluoride in their toothpaste. Okay. Now, if you are very concerned with fluoride, nowadays there are a few companies that are making fluoride-free toothpaste, but I would recommend that you should not use them. I think you should use fluoride toothpaste. And nowadays there's another concept called nano hydroxyapatite. So the hydroxyapatite is actually the crystals which our teeth are made of.
Right.
So the hydroxyapatite crystals are now being added to toothpaste instead of fluoride. And there is some initial research that's saying that it's equally effective or even more effective than fluoride without the potential
damages
side effects of fluoride. Although, again, I'm saying the dosage makes the poison. So as a clinician, and I told you this before our podcast started, as a clinician, we can't go by fringe evidence. We have to go by consensus. We have to go with metadata. We have to go with peer-reviewed science, but even higher than peer-reviewed science, we have to go with a consensus of the governing and educative bodies of medicine and dentistry.
Right.
And so far, all these bodies are recommending fluoride. So as of recording this podcast, it is my recommendation to use fluoride toothpaste.
Okay. Right. I mean, of course, there needs to be strong enough evidence and long enough and enough studies.
Yes, and we are not, and I'm not a researcher. I am a practitioner and I'm a clinician. So if I have to recommend something to my patients, it has to be based on a very large body of scientific evidence.
Yeah.
Because we are here to provide evidence-based dentistry.
That's the thing with science, right? It keeps evolving and then you do change practices and that can take decades sometimes.
Absolutely.
And we've been wrong about things in past and we could be wrong now. We will know when...
100%. But all we can do is what is the best current evidence.
Correct.
And we can have to follow that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I heard somebody say the moment they used an electric toothbrush, it taught them how to brush with a regular brush as well, like the right way. So I wonder what that meant. What's the difference? And is it better? Is it worse?
Okay. So I have an interesting take on this because I have seen the evolution of electric brushes over the last decade, right? So I was not a believer of electric brushes initially, right? Earlier, what you would have is oscillating brushes, right? Will go like, it'll move like this.
Right.
And there were those tiny circular brushes.
Yeah.
The head was too small, it was too cumbersome, and the battery operation was not great. In the last few years, our devices have become smaller, our batteries have become long lasting, there's a single USB port, it's become more convenient, more accessible. More important than that, today's electric brushes are sonic brushes. That means they vibrate with a certain frequency. And I think those are phenomenal at what brushing is supposed to do, which is breaking up the biofilm or the plaque layer. So along with your mechanical action, that the micromechanical sonic action of the brushes really helps to break away that plaque.
Okay.
And I actually will be honest with you, I only started using an electric brush 6 months ago.
Okay.
Right? Before that, I wasn't much of a believer in it. I said, yaar, ek aur cheez charge karni padegi, ek aur electronic device. And I was like, forget it. I know how to brush, it's fine.
Yeah.
But when I saw firsthand what electric brushes can do, I find it very easy to advise people to use electric brushes.
Interesting. I just bought one for my little one, and I was like, it's just vibrating, and what's the big deal?
So that vibration is what's causing was supplementing the cleaning action,
off.
Right? However, I would not recommend young children to use electric brushes. I'm still old school, because I want everybody to learn how to brush first. So I think it's the other way around, what you had mentioned. It's the other way around, because I think I've feared that electric brushes will prevent people from learning how to brush proper technique. And tomorrow, if they don't have access to the electric brush, they won't be able to brush properly. So I am actually of the opinion that you should first learn how to brush properly. And maybe sometime in your adulthood, you can switch to a electric toothbrush.
Yeah.
Don't give electric toothbrushes to young children. I'm not.
Okay.
That would not be my advice.
Don't give anything electric to young ones.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful, sir.
Yes.
Let us talk about lot of teeth whitening products that are out there.
Yes.
Toothpastes have those claims on them. So what do you have to say about
I'm surprised this question hasn't come up earlier in our conversation, because as a practitioner, this is something that we talk about to our patients all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
They want whiter teeth. Unfortunately, no over-the-counter product can whiten teeth. Everything that your toothpaste is claiming is almost
it's bullshit.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. It's complete bullshit, right? Because the amount of bleaching agent that you need to physically whiten teeth. Okay, sorry, let me back up a little bit. Whitening happens in two ways. Okay, one is just by simply cleaning your teeth. If you come to me and you say, doc, I want whiter teeth, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at your teeth and be like, do you have any stains on them? Do you have any plaque buildup on them? If I clean your plaque and stains, your teeth are going to appear whiter. And that's whitening.
Correct.
So normally, many times people come for whitening, and all I recommend and I do for them is cleaning. And they're very happy with the result. I'm like, तुम्हारे दांत साफ नहीं थे, इसलिए वो है.
Build up.
Right? Now, if you further, now let's say your teeth are clean. I've cleaned your teeth, you come back to me after 5 days and say, doc, ab kya karna hai? Okay, now my teeth look white, I want it whiter. Now we're in the zone of pure cosmetic dentistry. Now, whatever I do for you has no medical benefit for you. It is purely cosmetic.
Okay.
Now I want to do it in the safest possible way with the least amount of side effects.
Okay.
And I will then recommend bleaching, teeth whitening through bleaching to you, where I will physically apply a whitening gel on your teeth, which is going to whiten the base color of your teeth. Okay. Now, this material cannot be given to you on a toothpaste. It'll burn your gums and cheek. It has to be applied by a professional in a professional setting with protective layers all around your gums and cheeks.
I can imagine.
Right? Which is why you cannot put that material into a toothpaste. Therefore, those toothpastes have no whitening agent to them. They're simply like your Fair and Lovely cream, which has no chemical agent that can actually whiten skin.
But Shah Rukh Khan says it works.
So that's yes. So that's that. Yeah.
Just as a concluding thought, and it's a little bit of a worry. What do you think about the state of awareness about dental health. One, in the major cities, educated people, and two, those who don't have access to, like, the bulk of India. Don't have access to information, don't have access to resources. Uh, what's the state of their awareness of dental health?
It's really, really poor.
Mhm.
Whether it's educated or uneducated, whether it's urban, whether it is rural, the state of oral healthcare in India is abysmal.
Hmm.
I would say.
Yeah.
People are now, of course, it's abysmal, but it's significantly better now than it was before, but still very bad.
Still pretty bad.
Right? There's a lot of awareness that we need to create.
Hmm.
And I think things like this podcast are extremely important. If you like whatever I've told you, this is something that I tell my patients on a daily basis. Is nothing more than that.
Hmm.
So this is just basic stuff. But
Yeah.
if you're not visiting your dentist, you're not going to be aware of these things. So a lot more has to be done. And a lot more has to be done in a preventive way. Since this is an ultra running podcast, a lot of people here are runners. A lot of people know the benefit of prehab.
Yeah.
Right. I always compare this to prehab. Right. Before anything happens, you're always, all ultra runners, all runners have some kind of a sports doctor or a physiotherapist who they go to once every few months during their training, once every month, hopefully, or whatever, through their training cycle, or even in their off season for very minor niggles, or even when they don't have niggles. Right. The same approach you need to have with your dentist.
Yeah.
To avoid dentistry, you have to go to a dentist frequently so that you can do completely preventative work, which is cleaning, polishing, and screening for cavities.
Yeah.
You do this once a year or once in 6 to 8 months, you will most likely not require significant dentistry in your lifetime.
Very useful, sir. I personally also believe that I'm a firm believer in this approach on spending on all things health in particular, because that saves a lot of money.
Yes.
And that's what we don't realize. We think physio पे भी पैसा देना है, massage के लिए भी पैसा खर्चना है, because you run really long ultras and stuff. Races के लिए भी देना है, and so many expensive, like, things are expensive. We like in India, things are not cheap anymore, and we think, especially on healthcare, अगर दर्द नहीं है तो क्यों जाना है डेंटिस्ट के? That's an expense. But if you go as a preventative measure, you might be saving a lot on your expenses. For example, cardiac health, similarly, right?
Absolutely.
People don't go for all these CT, calcium, and all those checks. One of my guests, Daga Saga, that's his Instagram account. Madhur Daga is his name.
Yes.
The MD of Orient Build Tiles, pretty famous guy.
Yes.
Does great things on Instagram. He is a pretty fit guy, right?
Yeah.
Up in the morning at 5, out there, exercising every day, eating clean.
Yes.
He's got it all dialed in. And he just had a moment of awareness where he felt like getting his heart checked. He was like, why are all these runners collapsing at every event? Somebody or the other is collapsing. So he got a CT calcium score done, and he eventually found out there's 80% blockage in the widowmaker artery. He's made changes, lifestyle changes, and he's still able to exercise and do various other things.
Absolutely.
Had he not got the checkups done, had he not been proactive about that, anything could have happened. Not just in terms of hospitalization and expenses and everything. Anything could have happened. And that applies to all things to do with health. And even mental health is an investment that's worth making, right? बात तो हो रही है इसकी, oral health, who's talking about it? Like, nobody. It just feels like it's a necessary evil only if it pains.
Yes. So that pains me to hear, to be honest. Because, see, this is a very common saying amongst dentists. Dentistry is not expensive. Neglect is. Right? If you come, I'll give you actual costs in my practice. Okay?
But that's very like, it's wrong, because जो अफवाहें फैलाई जाती हैं वो ये वाले, like the Huberman guy was also saying, what is it called? Drill, fill, bill.
Pay the bill. That's right.
But yeah, I mean,
so if you spend,
it feels like dentists are out there to just do the fillings and charge you, do massive billings for you. But Tell us.
Okay, let's take an example of your small little cavity, tiny little cavity from the preventive stage. Okay. First thing is, cavities are not painful. They don't cause any pain. Only when they reach, so there's an enamel layer and then there's a dentine layer and then there's a nerve. Only when the cavity starts going into the dentine do you start developing symptoms of sensitivity and maybe mild amount of pain, but nothing more than that, completely ignorable. Oh, and if you ignore it, that's up to you. Now, if the cavity is small, all you need is a tiny filling, which is usually done without anesthesia. It's a single day procedure. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes, maybe half an hour, right? A cavity filling in my clinic costs about 4,000 rupees. Okay. If that goes to a root canal, then you need a root canal treatment, which is a multi-day appointment, and you need a crown on top of that root canal. Now the cost has gone from 4,000 rupees to upwards of 25,000-30,000 rupees. It is just that neglect that happens. If you come to me for a cleaning once a year, I'm going to charge you 4,000 rupees or 4,500 rupees, depending on one or two things. Your entire bill for the year is 4,500 rupees.
Right.
So it is cheaper than any of your prehabs, any of your rehabs.
And less painful.
And less painful, right?
Not painful.
It is only when things go bad. If you don't go to your prehab, you don't go to your rehab, you have an ACL tear. How much does an ACL tear repair cost? Right? How many days of hospitalization does that? So in all forms of medicine, prevention is very cheap. Neglect is expensive. It is true for dentistry. It's true for everything else. Right?
Beautifully put, sir. I think that's a good note to end on. And thank you so much for making time and educating me and my audience.
It's been my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.